that shows you that officer was one of the first on scene, if not the first, engaged. And we knew that officer had been hit. But out of respect, we held off. And then in the 6 o'clock hour, we heard the worst that we could possibly hear. We wanted to make sure we got our sourcing correct. That a law enforcement officer there in DeKalb County paid this ultimate sacrifice, and it's a heartbreaking situation there. This will impact all of those officers because likely what happened in this exchange of gunfire, there was an officer right behind this one. And that officer probably had to pull that officer out. They probably threw him in a police car and ran him to Emory. They didn't wait for an ambulance. And that's what people don't understand sometimes. If you've not worked with them in the field, if you haven't been around them, they get a, I know there's some bad apples out there. One doesn't make them all bad. And I'll tell you, those officers went to the gunfire. They did what they had to do, and you see what happened. And I'll tell you, what will happen with them is this will hit all of them. The ones that witnessed it, they might have never even seen an officer involved. They might have never seen this. And when it's your fellow brother in blue or sister in blue, it changes everything. And, they have to stay there and keep investigating. That's the part people don't understand. They couldn't stop and take it all in. They have to keep going. I was just thinking that as you said that, this image is really important. If you look closely, the back of that car, the windshield is shot out, and there was a lot of liquid under it, which speaks to damage from gunfire. That vehicle is right by the front door of that CVS where we believe that gun exchange happened. So that crime scene tape around the vehicle points to that would have been the vehicle officers were shielding behind when that shooting was happening. Again, this is that. We'll try and isolate that video for you because that's really where all of that would have happened. And I'm seeing video on coming into the 11 Alive newsroom from people who live in the area who are starting to share video of the gunshots. We're going to just pause and play some of that for you so you can hear what people in that area were hearing. Wow, that gives you chills because that was rapid and extended, and that's what officers were facing in those first moments. And again, it goes to show you that's what they were going into, and I always bring this up. That's what they train for. In 2025, they rush to that scene. Their number one priority is to engage immediately and not wait. You've seen the FBI there. What is going to be one big question at this news conference? They likely won't answer it for us, but a motive. Where did this guy come from, or this woman? We do not know the suspect's identity, but again, it was outside Emory Point. CVS telling NBC News National that everybody in their store was safe. In fact, NBC News reporting that they were told by the corporate of Target that this happened near their store. So we're wondering if this happened just out in the street, and what was the intended target here. That's something we hope to learn in this news conference, which we will bring live. And just a programming note, probably the most least important thing, but we know we get people that call in. Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy are on the WATL at 7. So that's where those are at. If you're joining us to watch your nightly Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, that's over on the WATL, and it'll start at 7, which is already under programming. But the reason we are on the air and we're staying on the air is because one of the men or women who signed up to protect us every day, no matter how much heat they take, lost their life protecting a community and protecting those folks there outside the CDC and all of those people who live along Clifton Road. That's why we're staying on the air, to learn more about this officer and about this heroic act this officer carried out today, because again, the sources are telling us this was one, if not the first responding officer who engaged with the suspect and likely could be the person that took him down. And thinking of everyone impacted, the tens of thousands of people in that area who heard the gunfire we just heard together, who saw the police response, who were hiding behind file cabinets or in closets, staying away from windows because we've seen bullet holes through windows in that area, and the impact to everyone who had somebody they care about who was in the center of all
all of this. That is a trauma that the city is sharing tonight, along with the loss of the officer. We want to send it to 11 Alive reporter Zach Merchant, who is at Emory Hospital. Emory Hospital for a time had been on lockdown. That's where the DeKalb County police officer was taken to, who we now learn through our sources has passed away. Zach, I understand you're talking with somebody who works there at the hospital.
Cheryl, we are. We're talking to Michael here. He's an employee. He works here at the hospital. Michael, first off, are you okay? Is everybody you know okay?
Yes, sir. Everybody that I work with and all of us and the respiratory department is okay.
Can you describe what you saw and what was happening as the day unfolded this afternoon and evening?
It was a regular day for me. I got a text saying that it was an active shooter. And at the time, I was just sitting down in the break room. So I just kind of stayed in the locker room and just stayed there for the time being.
When you get a text like that, what's the first thing that you do? What's the first thing that goes through your mind? I mean, that's got to be your nightmare.
I didn't think it was real. I didn't know what to make of it. Maybe it's a situation that's like maybe someone's having an argument or something like that. I didn't think it was be active, multiple people,
And now we're getting this news that this officer has succumbed to their injuries. I know we were talking just before we came on air here. You were saying, you're praying, you're sending your thoughts out for them and their family, right?
Yes, definitely. Condolences to the family, to the law enforcement that protect us. Thank you. Please be safe. God be with you. It's just really tragic.
Does the team at a hospital like this train and prepare to respond to incidents like this?
Yes, we do. We definitely do.
Did that training kick in today?
Yes, for sure.
Just describe to me, we want to be respectful of your time. We'll let you go in just a moment here, but I want to ask you one last question. For the hospital community here, you all see tragedies. It's your job is to help people. But when something like this happens, how does it impact everybody who works here?
I think it from a psychological standpoint, I feel more anxious a little bit. It's very tough. It's very tough, but we are a big part of the environment, the society, and we have a big job to do, and we're going to continue doing that.
When you hear the news that this officer, as we're reporting, was the first one on scene rushing towards this threat, how does that hit your heart?
It's really unfortunate. Condolences. It's very unfortunate. But he's a very brave man. Just condolences to the family.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you for your time. Glad you are okay.
Thanks.
Guys, we're going to send it back to you now.
All right, Zach, we really appreciate him sharing the perspective. I know for everyone who's been in that area, it's really kind of all sinking in. The first text alert came out just after 5 o'clock with all caps saying, run, hide, fight, avoid area, active shooter. So just soaking that moment in, then the 2 hours that happened since, then news of the loss of a DeKalb County police officer, the first officer on the scene, confronting that active shooter in an area where people were at the CVS. We know there were people inside the CVS when this happened, and we have just gotten confirmation from CVS that no one in the store was hurt. We know from the CDC headquarters, diagonally across that Clifton Road intersection, that nobody there was hurt, and that building was not breached, so that shooter was stopped in that first location. But to give a better understanding of what those first responders dealt with in those moments and what everyone who lives in that area heard happen around them, we want to take a moment in just a second to listen to some of the video of those initial gunshots. I just want to give a little warning for anyone who might feel the trauma of that. You're going to hear gunshots in just a moment as we pause together now to listen to what happened in those first moments when law enforcement confronted this active shooter. So rapid shots, extended gunfire between that shooter, who we can report has been killed. That single shooter from Atlanta police, we can confirm a single shooter who is now deceased. So now you heard all the gunshots. This is some of what happened because of those gunshots. These are images that were sent to us from someone who lives right above the CDC as they're looking out their window towards the CDC building. Pardon me. They live above the CVS where the shooting happened, looking towards the CDC building, and you're seeing bullet holes in the glass of that building. Again, we can confirm from the CDC that that building was not breached in any way.
And that matches what we're hearing from people there in that area. We are working to contact some of the businesses there by phone, because obviously we cannot get there in the Clifton Road area in front of the CDC where these pictures were taken. But I can tell you there is a salon there. It's called Skin Culture Spa. They have told CNN, they've reached them through the phone, that they saw the police officer shooting at a suspect around the corner from the CVS. And this person telling CNN, the spa employee, quote, "And then I heard the Emory CDC siren go off, and then it was completely silent after that. You heard like 4 to 8 gunshots continuously and then silence again." So again, this is an employee at the spa there under the apartment where we just saw that shoot those bullets in the window. So there were a lot of people in this area that witnessed this who are impacted by this. And this is the area you're looking at. So Clifton Road there is at that intersection. And that is the totality of this. How many people were involved? We believe that was one of the officer's vehicles because the back window is shattered out. The engine block looks to be shot up because of the liquids out there. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you something that stuck out to me. I mentioned this a little bit ago, but there was a white vehicle parked outside that CVS. It's been there since we started coverage, mm-hmm. and it's in the crime scene with the hood or the back of the trunk open in it. So if you notice when we come back to that shot, you'll see it up there, and it's curious if that's involved in some way. But what's going to happen now, obviously, when you have an OIS, officer-involved shooting, we know officers return fire. You'll have the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They will come in to do a parallel investigation. Mm-hmm. You'll have the ATF. They will be on scene to look at that gun. Where did this gun come from? The FBI is there. Right. Because we don't know if this suspect is a local. Did they cross state lines? Mm-hmm. The FBI has resources that local jurisdictions don't. They have access to a lot of databases. They have partners across the country who can help them. So there's a lot of parallel investigations. And I can tell you, I know for a fact, and what we're working to find out, if this is a local suspect, and you see police at a house next to you swarming that house, mm-hmm. this is tied to that. They work backwards now. The suspect's down, the threat is over. While they're clearing that campus, they're going to work backwards. Who is this person? Where do they live? Where are their parents? Where are their relatives? And they're going to go to those homes and start that process. And they want to find the vehicle too, because we've seen this, Cheryl. Anytime you see these national stories where there's an active shooter, sometimes they find things in the vehicle. You know, sometimes it's a manifesto. Sometimes it's explosive devices. Not saying that's here, but that's why they have to work backwards to make sure there are no other threats we don't see.
And then once they locate an address, if it is local, then there's a warrant to get a computer, to get a phone, to find out what the communication has been, all to answer the question that all of us share tonight, mm-hmm. which is why? Why take a weapon into a CVS in such a busy part of the city on a Friday at rush hour? Why would someone do this? That is ultimately the point of this investigation. And as Cody mentioned earlier, law enforcement is singly focused on that question as they are mourning the loss of one of their own. Knowing that someone is down, you're looking at the entrance to Emory University Hospital, where we know this DeKalb County police officer was taken. Why? Because it's the closest hospital to where this happened, and time was clearly of the essence. We see the perimeter still in place. You see cars coming to the entrance, and it just makes my heart sink because you know there is a family arriving at the hospital this evening. And they have made a sacrifice too, as that officer, as we've been able to confirm, was the first officer on scene. And Obviously, long before we were reporting it to you, a family got a phone call about what happened there on the intersection off of Clifton Road today.
And we do know that a news conference will be happening soon. We got a 15-minute warning. However, we know with these types of news conferences, they can be pushed back. But you saw that was the news conference area. APD's public information office is out there. They'll be leading that kind of coordination. So I would say 15 to 20 minutes, we'll get our first official. We have not heard anything from law enforcement except when the shooter was down and that a law enforcement officer has been shot.
Yeah, and that came shortly before 7 o'clock from the city of Atlanta, where they gave a safety update. That was right about the time that the shelter in place was lifted, when they were able to give that information, because there was a long period of time. There was a question with law enforcement. Was there a second shooter? And they wanted to make certain that was not the case. And when they were certain of that, then the all clear came. They were able to say a single shooter who's now deceased, the law enforcement officer who was injured. They were able to just confirm the injury. It's our sources telling us that a DeKalb County police officer has died. Again, we expect to hear more about that officer and potentially the shooter in this press conference. And we have heard from other officials. I just want to share the statement that came in from Governor Brian Kemp. His statement reading, "Twice this week, deranged criminals have targeted innocent Georgians. Each time, brave first responders rushed toward the danger to subdue the shooter and save lives, reminding us just how crucial they are. Marty, the girls and I are thankful for all those who answer the call to serve and who protect their fellow Georgians. We ask that you join us in holding them in our prayers, along with those harmed this evening near the CDC Center." The governor sharing that statement before we came on the air from our sourcing about the law enforcement officer who we are told by our sources died in the line of duty. We know we'll hear more from our elected officials about that loss throughout the evening.
And just to give you a perspective, for this year so far, we have seen 3 officers killed. Well, this would make the 3rd officer killed in the line of duty. We had the Roswell police officer, Jeremy Labonte. He was killed in a shootout on February 7th, 2025. Then we had Captain Garcia with South Fulton Police died in a crash on April 16th. This would make our 3rd Metro Atlanta law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty today here on August 8th, just after 5 p.m. And let me tell you, I just kind of got a screenshot of the vehicle we've been looking at from the backside of a DeKalb County police officer's vehicle. The back window shot out. I can tell you in the front of this vehicle, there's over a dozen shots, bullet holes in this DeKalb County police officer's vehicle. See that white car? That is the white car that has been sitting there. Earlier, the SWAT team was around that white car to the top of your screen to the left.
Doors open,
Yes.
hood up.
The SWAT team was all over that car earlier and it has not moved.
And we saw when that crime scene tape came up, it was outside of the car that you see, the white car Cody was pointing out, and the officer's vehicle that was shot out.
And I'll tell you, this DeKalb County police car, I would say it has more than a dozen bullet holes in the windshield, in the hood, in the side of it. So it's almost as if this deputy or this police officer pulled up and instantly took on gunfire or was hiding behind that vehicle. But I can tell you, there was a barrage of bullets. You heard Cheryl played that video a while ago. You could hear it from neighborhoods. But there had to be dozens of shots fired. That's that vehicle at question. The front of that vehicle is riddled with bullets.
Cody and I are looking at a still image on our computer right now, and I'm just counting the bullet holes I see in the front between the hood and the windshield. I've counted 16.
And again, we don't know, was that officer, sometimes they shoot from inside. If you're taking active gunfire, they are going to shoot immediately. So we know for a fact this was a large shootout. We saw some of those bullets flying to the apartments above the CVS. That's, we'll probably hear from those folks in the coming days, but that's what's so important when they put these shelter in place. When you hear this, you hit the floor. We're so in tune to go to it. Even as journalists, we want to rush out there. We want to be a part of it to show you what's happening. But in those initial few minutes, this is a perfect example. While law enforcement say get back, because you never know how far those bullets are going to go. You do not know the type of ammo they're using, the type of gun they're using. But we saw now all of those bullet holes. And that's the thing this will be a crime scene, I assure you, past midnight tonight, because Right now, they're still trying to clear the campus. It's devices. There's nothing that this suspect left behind that could be a threat. And then the investigation starts, Cheryl. Again, we have been hearing, we know that an officer was killed. So they have a homicide investigation. They have an officer involved shooting investigation, a deadly officer involved shooting. They have a suspect who's dead. Then they have to figure out who is the suspect and work backwards. And they have to find all of those bullets. So if there are bullets in those windows of those apartments, those people will be out of their house because that's a crime scene. They have to find the bullet. They'll go in the walls. They'll pick those. there is so much investigative work that now has to start.
And if you're not familiar with this area, let me just explain what you're seeing. These are the bullet holes in the glass of the CDC building. So this would be the perspective if you were at the CVS where the shooting happened, looking across the parking lot to the CDC headquarter building. The bullet holes you're seeing are in that building, and I'm guessing it's a football field away. So from where the barrage of bullets we heard together on that cell phone video happened, some made it all the way to the CDC headquarter building, which is why when those messages come to shelter in place, it's so critical to heed the warning right away, stay away from windows, stay as far back as you can, because that was not the intended target, but bullets went through the glass of that building. And if you're just joining us, I just want to reiterate, we did hear from the CDC that the building was not breached. No one went inside that building. Nobody was hurt. So you understand how fortunate it is when you see those bullet holes that no one was next to the window sitting at their desk when that happened. And they sheltered in place in a way that was safe. And we're not talking about any civilian injuries, because Emory University is right there with 20,000 employees. The CDC is right there with more than 11,000 if they're working in the building. That CVS there, we know there were people inside the store 5 o'clock on a Friday evening when this happened. And then the apartments right above that first floor CVS. And we're hearing from a lot of people who live there who heard this all happen and had no idea at that moment what was happening. And I'm glad that we're not talking about any civilian casualties, but we are, mourning the loss of a law enforcement officer here in the city.
I do want to bring this up just because we're trying to just be transparent. What we see out here, a lot of times I'm in the field. So it just happens today I'm here in studio, but I've been out to the CDC, and something that I just was pointed to was a lot of times they have protesters out of the CDC every day at the CDC entrance at Emory Point.
Sure, we've seen that.
And that's typically where they stand, is on the edge. So it's, did they witness this? Was there some alternative motive? Because I think a lot of the CDC employees are on right now social media saying, hey, it wasn't us. We got stray bullets in our windows, but it seems like everything happened
right there
at the entrance area on Clifton Road. Because again, my source originally said 1600 block. Then we heard from APD. They responded to the 1760 area of Clifton Road, and it's all at that CVS area. And then witnesses telling CNN they saw them shooting at the suspect around the corner, which is where that car is parked. And I will tell you where that car was parked and we looked at, they usually stand on the other side. So there's a lot of things happening here. And I think anytime I said you hear CDC, it's very controversial with what's going on in our political environment.
Certainly.
And I think that's what caught a lot of attention. But this should catch attention anyways at this point, because again, we have a law enforcement officer down at this hour and a suspect, and a lot of questions what led up to this. And if you are just joining us, typically we're not on the air at 7:22 here, but just kind of reset everything. Around 5:02, Cheryl and I were in our newscast at retweet to hide, fight, or run that they had an active shooter near Emory Point at that CVS, Cheryl. And I think that's when we were trying to figure out, where is this happening? We saw a massive response. And out there you have agencies from all over Metro Atlanta. You had fire, EMS, you had state agencies and federal agencies. They trained for this, and all of them came together on this stretch of Clifton Road right here and contained this scene. And they did what they practiced, what they trained for. And this is where it all went down. Right here at this intersection is where this happened, Cheryl. And we know the shots rang out around the 5 o'clock hour. I would imagine if the alert went out at 5:02, this shooting had to happen a little bit before there to have time to even know that this is what's going on and to get that out.
And to send the alert out. We know that Emory Hospital was locked down. We know schools in the area were locked down. We know of memory care centers that were locked down. That's all since been lifted. And as people sheltered in place for a long period of time, there was discussion about whether it was one shooter or two shooters. Atlanta police has since confirmed it was one shooter. That shooter is deceased. As we're seeing some perspectives here from people who were taking video outside of windows as they were sheltering in place, all of this right around that Emory University and the Emory Hospital right there. And at 7:24, I can tell you that we are on par, according to Atlanta police, to start a press conference at 7:30. We know Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens is there. Atlanta's Police Chief Darren Shearbaum is there. We assume DeKalb County will be there, as well as we're hearing a DeKalb County police officer has died in the line of duty. And DeKalb Police, in the history of its department, has had 32 line of duty deaths. The last one, Sergeant Daniel Marcus Mobley, was hit and killed by a car in January of 2021. That's the last time that department lost one of its own. This investigation still very much in the beginning stages. To your point, Cody, we know where the confrontation happened between police and the shooter. We don't know what brought the shooter to the area. And that's an important point because we're talking so much about that CVS. But you're right. There's a lot happening there. The university's there, the hospital's there, and CDC headquarters are there. So as you're following along with us, just know that is something we don't know the answer to because it speaks to the motive and the why. We just know that that's the place where the confrontation happened.
And I think it's interesting, too, that the APD chief, Chief Shearbaum, is going to lead this with the Atlanta mayor, even though this isn't a section of DeKalb County. But obviously, when you think of the CD, it's in Atlanta. So they are going to take the face of this. And I'll tell you, Shearbaum, he takes heat a lot. But typically when he does step up to a podium, he does not hold back on a lot of things. He will put as much out there that he can.
That's true.
The mayor will, too. Obviously, the attention of the country is on Atlanta right now as this has went out nationally. But I imagine Chief Shearbaum is going to give us as much as possible on this suspect without compromising the investigation. Of course, a lot of things will be put out there throughout the night, but he likely will give us some good information on what transpired on Clifton Road.
All right, some really important new information coming in from our partners at CNN. CNN is reporting that law enforcement sources are saying, after speaking with family members, that the shooter believed he was sick or became sick because of the COVID vaccine and was therefore targeting the CDC. The CNN is reporting that the CDC is still on lockdown.
That's interesting. Of course, they have their own sources. We have not heard that, but I will tell you, of all the places this could have happened, it happened across the street from the CDC. And I will tell you, just as a journalist trying to go to the CDC, it's like going to the FBI office. You have to give all of your credentials. It's on lockdown. It's very hard to get in there. And who knows if he was on his way? That's the question I have, is the initial response. Why was that DeKalb County officer there? It came in as an active shooter. Did he just start shooting at the building? And like I said, if that is true, again, these are all sourcing. No law enforcement has confirmed this, but CNN obviously is here in Atlanta. They have a lot of good law enforcement sources, and everybody's wanting answers. But I don't think they might be too far off, considering this did happen in the street at the entrance of the CDC, because it doesn't make sense. Why at this apartment complex? Why at the CVS? He wasn't inside. That's the questions maybe Chief Shearbaum will answer, or at least say that it's something they are looking at. But if you are just joining us here as we approach the 7:30 hour, this is where it happened. That is a DeKalb County police officer's vehicle that was shot up just around the 5 o'clock hour. It appears the shootout went down at the intersection there at Emory Point Place and Clifton Road, right near the gates of the entrance for the CDC, right outside of CVS. Many businesses along that stretch of Clifton Road. This is a big thoroughfare that people go through to get home. This has been shut down all afternoon. It will be throughout the night as there are multiple investigations underway. But of course, everybody wants to know, why this happened. Who is this person? And I will tell you from sources now, they are literally having to clear every single building. There's also, obviously, there's a daycare there. I'm told they're having to clear that. They've been holding kids there. We're talking dozens of kids there. And again, they don't believe, we thought there might have been a second shooter. Anytime you hear of an active shooter like this, you always have to consider a second shooter. So that's what they did. They went through it. They were thorough. And now what they're doing is looking for any other threats because they don't want to leave this and then find out there's something there tomorrow and more people could possibly be hurt. So they're working backwards. They're clearing buildings. We're talking 10 acres, I think, or I'm talking 10,000 acres, 24 buildings here. That's why you have the large response here as well. A lot of different multi-jurisdictional investigations are underway. This crime scene is very large. They will use technology to try to find the bullets. The GBI will actually do a 3D image of this.
Yeah.
The GBI has a machine that they will bring it out there and reenact how this thing went down. Because even though the shooter is down, that investigation part's over.
Right.
They will look back on this. This will be used for training, how they responded, and of course, build a case because was anybody else involved? Just because he might have been the sole shooter, was somebody else involved? Did somebody else know that this could happen?
The plan?
So that's the thing. There's a lot of things, mental health. What was his mindset? And did someone know that he lived with family, that these threats were out there, social media? Had he been making threats? And a lot of that will start coming out as we go through the night. People are already dissecting the social media, law enforcement trying to shut it down first. But that's why the FBI comes in, because they have really good tools that can really dig into the history of who this person was.
And because the suspect is dead and that car may or may not be that shooter's car, that there are a lot of leads that they're already tracking down right now. If this is a local person, if it's a local person and they connect it to an address and start to get more information with a search warrant to get a phone or a hard drive on a computer to find out, was this person online talking about any of these issues? What was the motive? So that investigative piece is just beginning. But as we look at the law enforcement response, just want to bring it back for a moment on two pillars here, one being law enforcement and the impact to our law enforcement community. As we've heard from our sources that a DeKalb County police officer has died in the line of duty, the first officer on scene confronting this shooter, and all the other law enforcement officers who are there and impacted by their loss, along with their family, friends, and loved ones. And also thinking about everyone else who's been impacted because they were in the buildings, hearing the gunfire, seeing the law enforcement response, texting with friends, texting with family, trying to get information, not knowing what was going on. As Cody said, the daycares, the elementary schools, all back in school right now in that area on lockdown. All of the patients and staff at Emory University Hospital that were locked down, and the people who may have been inside that CDC building working today. We know a lot of them were called back to the building, no longer working remote, as we saw bullet holes in the glass of that building, in the window glass of that building, and then people who live above that CVS as well on a Friday evening who heard the gunfire. As we played the video of the gunfire, there were dozens of shots, and that is in line with the video we're seeing as Cody and I have looked closely at this vehicle right here, a still image of this car, that law enforcement car with the shot out back window. And we counted more than a dozen bullet holes in the front windshield and the front hood of that car, as in the very early moments that we were live with you on the air right after the 5 o'clock hour, as we were watching SWAT members running towards the building, we saw officers crouched next to that vehicle with their guns drawn in those initial moments after the response. And then it was about an hour and a half later, they started setting up that crime scene tape, building that perimeter where that investigation is now focused around that law enforcement enforcement vehicle and the white car there next to the CVS with all the doors open and the hood popped, and to make sure, there it is, that's the white car we're talking about, that we're wondering is the suspect's car, and perhaps could be leading other investigators right now to gather the information that could answer the question about why CNN saying that there might be a link to CDC according to their sources. Cody's working his sources, our newsroom, we're all working the sources. That question has not been confirmed. Again, any moment now we expect to hear from police and the mayor and other city officials about what other information they can share about the shooter, about the officer who's down, and any hint to a motive about what's played out here in the city of Atlanta, in DeKalb here today.
And here you can see Chief Shearbaum. He's on the left there. You see Mayor Dickens. He's right in the middle. That's a lot of the command staff for APD. The one in the white blouse, black skirt there. She is the head of the Public Information Office for APD. They have a lot. Now you see the woman behind her or in front of her. She's in the black polo. That is the Public Information Officer for the DeKalb County Police Department. They are the ones that disseminate all the information to us that we send to you. So they prep their chiefs, they prep the mayor as well. They're all talking there. That is the command staff for APD and the DeKalb County Police Department, along with the mayor. And of course, a very tough day for DeKalb County, because we do expect them to walk out and confirm what has been told to us by sourcing. It's also been reported by national outlets is that we have a law enforcement officer who was shot and killed today. And you see the guy right there in the blue with his back to us. That is Tony Thomas. He's from the FBI. He's a spokesperson for the FBI. So it does look like while APD and the mayor might lead this, they're going to have their national or their federal partners, local partners. She's likely coming over right now to tell us a 2-minute warning, but I believe she runs a tight ship. This will start pretty much on time because, again, they know people are watching. They know this is a big situation. They know they've lost an officer, and people want answers because this impacted not just that area, but we're talking daycare there, employees, people who are out and about today and saw this response all over the city.
If you're just joining us here expecting to see Jeopardy, obviously we're covering an active shooter that was at the Emory Point CVS there on Clifton Road. The shooter has been taken down by law enforcement, but our sources tell us that a DeKalb County police officer has died in the line of duty. All of this unfolding as tens of thousands of people had to shelter in place, which is why we have continued our coverage here on 11 Alive. We are airing Jeopardy right now on WATL. If you are looking for Jeopardy, you will find it on WATL. We're going to stick with you here through the press conference as we anticipate getting a lot of new information. They have delayed the press conference for a bit here, but that is because it's really critical that there is some coordination between the different jurisdictions, between law enforcement and the city and the FBI to make sure they're all on the same page and they get out the information that is correct. They're also wanting to be sensitive to the victim's family here and to all law enforcement families who are feeling this, and to the community that has been impacted in a number of ways through this today. So they're taking the time they need to get the information sorted out that we'll share with you here as soon as they walk up to the podium.
And even as we're waiting, they are getting new information because this is a very fluid situation. Our own Grace King even saying that she is there near the podium, and they say that, again, this is evolving. They're learning new information as we speak, but it does appear that Mayor Dickens and Chief Shearbaum will be the only two addressing this situation. They will be backed up by their partners there. As I mentioned, that's DeKalb County Police there behind them. That is also the mayor as well who will be speaking. That's the FBI back there and other locals as well. They are getting briefed on the situation, but they will walk up. It's likely they will allow. Chief Shearbaum usually does take questions, and that's when we will ask, anything that he doesn't answer. Because even though he does try to give as much as possible, this is a very complex investigation.
And better to hold some of that information close to the vest. At the end of the day, they don't want to compromise the the investigation in any way. This is obviously a high stakes investigation. There are a lot of moving parts. They're going to be as forthcoming as they can, but they are going to protect the investigation and also be sensitive to the families. The families will have some of the say of how much information is even given about a victim. And so we're expecting that to happen momentarily, as the CDC has been more and more part of the conversation about potentially maybe a reason the shooter came to this area. I want to mention that as terms of communication from the CDC, the only confirmed information we have from the CDC is that the building was not breached, meaning no one got inside the building. We do have pictures showing bullet holes in windows at the CDC. I'm on the CDC X page. They have not released any other statement that I see in terms of that, but we understand the CDC campus is still on lockdown, which I think is interesting because a lot of other places have been released up to this point.
And I think that matches what sources are telling us, is that, again, we're talking a 10,000 acre property with 24 buildings. I mentioned there's daycares there. I'm told, there's over 100 kids in this daycare. I know CNN was reporting that they talked to a mother on scene. She ran over a mile to try to get to her child. This impacted a lot of people. And this is, if you're just joining us again, this is where all of this unfolded, we believe. Maybe that white car there at the top of your screen has something to do with this. It's been there. The SWAT team was around it. That's the CVS there in the far upper side. This is where all agencies responded around 5 o'clock to an active shooter call. We understand the mayor and Chief Shearbaum with Atlanta Police are walking up to the podium. There might be a little bit of silence, but here comes Mayor Dickens right now. Let's take a listen.
Good evening. My name is Andre Dickens. I'm the mayor of the city of Atlanta. I'm joined here today by Atlanta Police Department Chief Shearbaum, Atlanta Fire Rescue Chief Smith, as well as FBI SAC Brown to my right, and the DeKalb County PIO Officer Wells. We're just a few of the individuals and teams that are here that's been on scene for the last 2 hours, as I've witnessed the coordination amongst many of this active shooter incident that occurred today on the campus of Emory University, just off site of the CDC and next to this CVS pharmacy. This active shooter incident started this afternoon, and Chief Shearbaum will give you some of the details regarding that. I witnessed over the last 2 hours a very coordinated response. A lot of training had to go into how these men and women of Emory University, DeKalb County Police, the FBI, the City of Atlanta Police, Fire and Rescue from both DeKalb and the City of Atlanta, the GBI, Georgia State Patrol. I saw officers coming from all over to be able to respond to this incident. At this time, Chief Shearbaum will give you more of the details, but at this time, the shooter is deceased, and we don't have any civilians that have been shot in this active shooter incident. Thank God for that. We do have a DeKalb County officer that was also shot. And at this very moment, the CEO of DeKalb County, Lorraine Cochran Johnson, as well as the police chief of DeKalb County, are at the hospital right now, meeting and talking with individuals, the families, and other officers that were involved having to respond to this emergency situation. They will shortly come to this very same spot to give a press conference and an update on that officer and that incident. And at this time also, on the CDC's campus, there are 92 children that are in a daycare that is on this campus. They are safe, and we are setting up with the CDC and all connected parties to be able to get those families reunited with those children at a local school very nearby. And we have the address of that. That Chief will give you the specific address and name of that school nearby. So we are working to unify families. And at this time, there have been no civilian casualties, but this was an active shooter incident. The shooter is now deceased. The campus is, there are no threats on the campus currently, but we still have an active investigation. Atlanta Police Department will be the investigating party. And so we ask that while things are safe, that you don't drive in that part of campus, because we need to make sure that the investigation goes through without any obstruction. Again, to the men and women that work at the CDC, we know that you've had a tough go of it in the past year, and my heart goes out to you as uncertainty was around your occupation and you being citizens of Atlanta. That means something to me. And then today, this occurs. We are with you. We stand with you. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that we bring resolve to the situation. And FBI SAC Brown, he may be able to tell you more about some of the windows that might have been shot on various floors of the CDC as gunfire did take place. The other thing is, to those parents of those 92 children that are at the CDC, I'm a parent as well. I know your uncertainty and your fear and your concern has been high. We wanted to come give you this message that all the children are safe and that we will be making sure that you get reunited with them as soon as possible. I know your heart is just really, really aching, but the good news is none of them have been injured, and we will get you connected to those, to your loved ones really soon. I'll come back to this microphone after others will be given a chance to speak. Now I turn it over to Chief Darren Shearbaum, as Atlanta Police Department has been in coordination with all the other outstanding agencies as we've been working together. And this is why we train on active shooter drills, et cetera, around this region. This has been a group project and a coordinated effort. And Darren Shearbaum, the Atlanta Police Chief, will now address you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chief.
Just give you an update and some additional information what the mayor provided. So this afternoon at approximately 4:50, the Atlanta 911 Center became aware of a report of an active shooter that was occurring at 1600 Clifton Road. This is right at the intersection of Clifton Road and CDC Parkway, immediately in front of the CDC campus. Officers from multiple agencies responded, from the campus, across the region, from our federal partners and our state partners responded to the scene. Officers arriving found a critically injured DeKalb County police officer that was down. He was immediately extracted from the scene and taken to Grady Memorial Hospital. Officers could still hear gunfire occurring inside the CVS drugstore that is right there at the intersections. Officers moved quickly to attempt to find the shooter and to neutralize the threat to the community. We later found the shooter on the second floor of the CVS. He had been struck by gunfire. We do not know at this time whether that was from officers or if it was self-inflicted. He was removed from the location by Atlanta Fire Rescue to render aid. He did pass at the scene. We also know that the CDC campus did receive multiple rounds into their buildings. Right now, as the mayor stated, we are not aware of any injury that occurred to anyone on that location. 4 other individuals did later arrive at the hospital. They were retreated for stress and anxiety symptoms. They were not injured in the shooting. And to reemphasize what the mayor stated, the children in the daycare center are unharmed. We have law enforcement and medical professionals with them, and we are coordinating the return of those children to their families. We've already put this out. We want to reemphasize it. The CDC leadership is communicating this to all parents, but the reunification site is at the Clifton School, which is located at 1900 Starvine Way, Starvin Way in Decatur. And we want to again reassure all parents and loved ones that their children are okay. We do believe there was a single shooter, and we do believe that single shooter is deceased. Right now, the investigation is being conducted by the Atlanta Police Department's Complex Case Squad, by the GBI and the FBI in a joint investigation until we know more information as to what transpired. The Atlanta Police Department is lifting up the DeKalb County officer, the DeKalb County Police Department in our prayers, and I ask everyone that is watching this broadcast to do the exact same thing. And I want to commend the men and women of law enforcement from all across this region that when this community needs them, no one shirked from the danger. And every officer from multiple districts responded and immediately moved to end this threat. Thank you. Want to say anything?
Sure. Hi, I'm Paul Brown, the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Atlanta Division. And like the Chief and the Mayor said, we immediately responded to the scene. At this time, we're not aware of any casualties on the campus of the CDC, but in conjunction with our partners, we're methodically clearing that to ensure that that is accurate and that is remains so. And then once that's done, we'll assist with processing the scene and conducting the investigation jointly with our partners.
Mayor, Chief, we'll get ready for questions. We'll start on this side. We may not be able to get to everyone, but we'll start with you, Rob, over to the mayor's right.
Right.
Good evening, Mayor. Is it believed right now that the CDC was targeted in this attack?
Well, I'll let Chief Shearbaum ask anything around the investigation. He'll be able to answer that. But right now, it's so preliminary. I read social media and I get calls from a number of you that have heard things about this individual's background. He's a white male, and he has he is a known person that may have some interest in certain things that I can't reiterate right now with any confidence until the investigation is fully conducted. But I think that in a short order, you'll know more about this individual and about some assumptions of his motives, but can't say right now.
All right.
Can you tell us anything more about the suspect? What kind of weapon did he use? How many rounds went into the CDC building?
Chief, you want to?
Not yet. We can tell you multiple rounds were fired. We can tell you that multiple rounds were fired, both we believe at law enforcement and potentially at the CDC. Purposely, we can't say it definitively, but it would appear we can't rule that out right now.
Is that CVS a 2-story store, or was he in some other kind of place above the store?
We believe it's a multiple-story building, but he was on the second floor of the building that houses the CVS.
Does he have a criminal record?
We can't release that at this time.
Did the man live in that building?
Allow me to let someone else ask a question. Anyone over here at New York Times?
So this shooting comes on the heels of a few other high-profile shootings, including the one at Fort Stewart, including numerous on Edgewood and some other neighborhoods. I'm curious to what extent can the city confront what seems to be a rash of gun violence without state-level intervention?
So your question around a number of high-profile shootings, Fort Stewart, here at Emory, and others across the nation and in the state of Georgia, is definitely one that we have to pay attention to. Mass shootings, active shooter scenarios should not become the norm. We have a number of individuals in this country that have access to high-powered weapons. And for individuals with those high-powered weapons that may have mental challenges, or those individuals with high-powered weapons that are angry, when they choose to use those weapons in a way that harms multiple people, we have to put an end to that in our society. So this is something we do have to have a national and a state, a full conversation across the nation and across the state of Georgia, not just in one city. As you see, this is a coordinated effort across DeKalb, across college campuses, the FBI, the GBI. As you see active shooters across the nation, we've just been added to the statistic.
Right here in black shirt. Allow her opportunity.
We're hearing that the officer passed away. Did he pass away?
Well, at this time, it is a DeKalb County officer. And we want to make sure that DeKalb County is able to respond to what's going on with that officer. We know that he was shot and critically injured. And at this time, as I stand here, I can't give you that information that you just asked. We have the PIO of DeKalb County here. And as I said, in short order, you will hear from the DeKalb County chief and the DeKalb County CEO.
All right, over here.
Can I ask, why was the DeKalb officer there? I know this area is kind of on that border, but just talk about that, maybe Chief Shearbaum or you, Mr. Mayor.
We'll talk about how mutual aid and how we're all kind of together.
This is an area that is part of the city limits, but inside of DeKalb County, so it's not uncommon for patrol patterns to cross for multiple jurisdictions that may share the space. We don't know why the officer was there. Was he going to work? Was he coming home from work? We don't know if he was on patrol. We will know that at the end of the investigation.
Hang on, Ryan. She's got it.
Do you want to give an update?
So we can confirm that our officer was responding to the threat of the active shooter. Yes. Yes, we can confirm that our officer was responding to the threat of the active shooter.
Can you give an update on the condition? There have been several media reports that he's passed away or she.
So we can't confirm that at this time. Like Mayor said previously, our interim chief Pedrick will be here to provide an update. I just don't have that information readily available.
Ryan, over here, Ryan.
So we are, both chief and mayor, if we can, we're getting reports that maybe the suspect who was known had some issues with the CDC because he was upset about a COVID vaccine and he thought it made him sick. Is there any way you guys can maybe address that, and maybe if he was targeting the CDC because of the vaccine?
We cannot confirm at this time. This is in the earliest stages of the investigation. The same questions you have, law enforcement has. And so everything that is the question of the nation, we're going to get the answer to, and we'll be able to report back as soon as we can.
All right, Univision. Question?
We're hearing this maybe for cab, but was this officer a rookie officer? We heard basically he was almost ambushed a little bit when he actually arrived on scene.
So any information about the officer will come from Interim Chief Pedrick later this evening, including his status and how long he was with the department.
All right.
Is the white car with the trunk open and shot up, is that connected to the suspect?
It's part of the crime scene at this time. We can't confirm if it was the car that the suspect drove, but it is being searched by the police and it's being held as evidence.
All right. We're going to take the last question right here.
Do you guys have a timeline of when the gunfire was called in and how quickly officers responded and how quickly the suspect was?
4:50 p.m. is when the first call came in. Law enforcement arrived very, very quickly thereafter. Oftentimes when officers arrive, they're so quickly engaged in the scene, they can't radio out. So we'll be reviewing all video to determine when the first officers arrived. But the response was from multiple agencies. I wish I could name everyone right now, but the citizens of the Atlanta region should be proud of their law enforcement today.
Mayor, you want to give a parting statement before we go?
Yeah, as Chief stated, this was a coordinated effort. When I was here around 5:15 or so, I was seeing not only DeKalb County and Atlanta, we were seeing Gwinnett County. We saw officers from Dunwoody. We saw, of course, Emory, the FBI, GBI, Georgia State Patrol. Everyone was responding because there were shots being fired, calls for shot being fired right there in front of the CDC, and then shots fired inside of the CVS. And so you're hearing, everyone responded. It was hundreds of officers as well as fire rescue. And at this time, we've spoken with Emory President Finvez, as well as all of the individuals at the CDC, the leadership there, and the leadership of DeKalb County, et cetera. Everyone will continue to give updates throughout this evening. This very same spot will be utilized by DeKalb County as they return from the hospital really soon, as they're talking with families. And as more information becomes available that we can share about the suspect that is now deceased, we will make sure that we share that because we want you to know the mindset, what might have led to this so that we never have it happen again. We want right now to give this update that the area is clear. No threats continue to exist, and we're going to start reuniting families with those children that are in that daycare. And again, the campus has the all clear sign. Stay out of that area right there in front of the CDC and where the CVS is, because it is an active investigation that's being led by APD in coordination with FBI, GBI, and of course with DeKalb County there. That's it at this time.
Thank you, everyone. For any updates, please make sure you follow the Atlanta Police Department social media. That's where we will have updates. That's also where we will let you know where we will have our next press conference. And we'll also try to send an email. Thank you, everyone.
To Mayor Dickens there, among others, I want to jump off one point that he was just talking about, reuniting family members and children. It's been an excruciating long 3 hours for people who have been separated from loved ones as people were on lockdown. We know that includes 92 children at a daycare at the CDC, a building that has bullet holes in the windows as we speak, had been under lockdown. Now parents can reunite with their kids. The address is 1900 Starvine Way. That's the Clifton School. So if you've not been able to see your kids, I know that's torture. You want to get to them as soon as you can. That's happening right now at the Clifton School, 1900 Starvine Way. That's 92 daycare children. We did hear the story of one mom who ran a mile because it was closer for her to get there on foot and literally ran to the building to get her child out of daycare. So we're glad to say those reunions are going to be happening. And we heard the mayor emphasize, along with Chief Shearbaum, how grateful they are that there were no civilians, no people in the area who were hurt in this exchange on gunfire between the shooter and law enforcement. But it remains to be stressed that a DeKalb County police officer who was among the first to get there and to engage with that shooter with a barrage of rapid fire gunshot that we heard on video. The mayor is simply saying critically injured, but we have sources that say it's more serious than that.
Yeah, we knew right during the 5 o'clock hour how bad this was. We withheld some of that information out of respect for the DeKalb County Police Department, this officer's family and law enforcement watching us. But we do know tonight that a DeKalb County police officer, first responding officer, took a barrage of gunfire and lost his life tonight due to the senseless acts of this suspect who we have not yet identified. We do know the DeKalb County Police Department, the chief of police, the CEO will walk out of that podium we just watched at 8:30 tonight. We'll bring it to you live, and it's likely that is when they will announce the passing of one of their heroes in DeKalb County who responded today to save, probably saved many lives and took that gunman down, at least injured him. Still unclear if he took his own life or if that officer took his.
We're talking about the area around Emory University Hospital, the Emory campus, and the CDC headquarters. The mayor specifically talking about the CDC headquarters as part of this investigation. This, if you don't know that area, is right along Clifton Road and CDC Parkway, and the shooting right by that CVS pharmacy there on the corner. We are going to hear from members of DeKalb County, from the law enforcement arm of the county, and the CEO of DeKalb, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, coming up at 8:30. We'll bring that to you here on 11 Alive.
And to be honest, that's the most important news we'll get tonight because, again, that officer died a hero tonight in DeKalb County in the city of Atlanta, protecting the people that he signed up to serve and protect. Of course, we'll bring that to you right here on air when they walk out. And of course, we'll be streaming that as well inside the 11 Alive Plus app.
If any more information comes in, we'll cut into program. For now, we'll send you back to our regular programming.
We are with you and we stand with you. So certainly a lot of concern about what employees of the CDC may be feeling tonight after seeing some of the gunfire that ended up at their buildings.
And a key takeaway here that officials had noted is that there is no further threat that they have deemed to the public anymore. So we know that the lockdown order was lifted on Emory University a time ago. And so we know that there are a lot of people very concerned, very confused, and that's understandable because it is a lot to take in. But they did want to emphasize there is no further threat to the public, that there was one alleged shooter. That shooter is deceased. They say that the shooter, they ultimately found him on the second floor of the CVS. It is unclear if the alleged shooter died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound or if that came from an exchange with law enforcement. They're still working to figure that out. But Blair, as you said, over 90 children at this daycare. Thankfully, everyone okay, but we heard from a number of understandably very concerned parents.
Yeah, that daycare right across the street from where the CDC is. And we saw gunfire through some of the windows there at the CDC. And as one of our investigators here at Atlanta News First, Andy Prati, was showing us, he zoomed in on the picture and you could see that daycare there being so close, so close to tragedy. I think it's pretty amazing. No civilians were shot here today. This taking place outside that CVS, some gunfire inside the CVS. This all taking place 4:50, 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon here in this city, which is so busy. People are leaving that area. Certainly there has been tragedy here, but this could have been so much worse. Any civilians shot here today.
And we are still awaiting further updates from DeKalb County Police. We understand that one of their officers was critically injured, ultimately transported to the hospital, and waiting to continue to get updates from that department.
And we'll be asking a lot of questions about, the suspect in this case. And they're just not at a point where they're ready to release all that. And I imagine they're going through talking with that person's family and trying to identify where he's from, exactly what led up today, and what's been happening before today. Because it certainly sounds like there was much more to this, as the mayor was alluding to, than just one incident unfolding here this afternoon.
And certainly we heard journalists out there asking questions about the potential connection to the CDC. If the CDC was a target at this time, they have not been able to confirm that. They're, of course, still getting all of the pieces put into place. But we have heard that has been reported as one potential motive for the violence that took place today.
The good news is for people in that community, and there are a lot of people in that community around the campus, around the CDC, a bunch of neighborhoods there, the threat is over at this hour, as we heard from officials, and they said there really is no threat at this point. It's a matter of really the investigation and what's left its mark in that community, and where there'll be so many questions about how this unfolded and what led up to here today.
And we have reporter Niamani Watson standing by for us. Niamani, you were just listening to that press conference. We learned a lot more information from investigators. Walk us through some of the details that you learned and kind of summarize what we know up to this point.
Yeah, we heard from Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum. They gave us a lot more details. I mean, Mayor Andre Dickens spoke about a very coordinated response between multiple agencies about what unfolded today. Now, they also said, like you said earlier, 92 children were in a daycare nearby. Again, they are safe, and right now officials are coordinating, reuniting the kids with the families. Now, we know around 4:50, that's when we got reports of shots fired. We know that officials or officers responded to the scene and they found a DeKalb County officer injured, shot. Again, they said that he was critically injured and that he is at the hospital right now. We know that DeKalb County police chief and the DeKalb County CEO is at the hospital speaking with the family right now. Now, when officers were at the scene, they also heard gunshots inside of the CVS at Emory Point. They went inside that CVS and they found the suspected shooter on the second floor. We don't know if the suspected shooter died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound or, again, as you mentioned, Carly, in exchange with another officer. But again, multiple agencies responded to this incident, and it was a massive crime scene area. We are hearing from people who lived in apartments nearby saying they heard at least 30 to 60 rounds of gunshots as well. But we'll continue to keep you updated on what's going on. For now, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Niamani. And I don't know if we can pull up some of the video that we heard earlier today talking about that gunfire, because one of our investigators here at Atlanta News First, Anastasia Almos, had some video showing in some of the gunfire outside that CVS, and you could really see it from the police standpoint. Here it is. Can we go and listen in on this? So that video is what we obtained from someone obviously working across the street from that CVS there, who described two batches of gunfire and described it as a shootout between police and the suspect. And that's some of what police talked about as well. But they also just said that at one point the suspect was on the second floor of that CVS outside there. And it looks like there may be some residential up there. So there may have been a way for that suspect to get up there through some stairs or something. But it's just so chilling to kind of see that unfold. And then she said that happened around 5 o'clock, and police said the incident unfolded right at 4:50. So a lot of gunfire was happening here today.
And we see this is from a business across the street. We also heard earlier from someone who says they work at a business next door, a restaurant next door. So as you mentioned, Blair, there are apartments here, there are businesses here, there are restaurants here. And it's still unclear. We haven't pinpointed where all of this began. We don't know where the shooter allegedly first opened fire. Right. We don't know if it ultimately ended at the CVS, if it began at the CVS. And so those are still pieces that we're working to put together.
Yeah, because police said this started in front of the CDC campus, and the CDC campus is quite large.
Yes.
So it very well could have been right there at the CVS. It may not have moved around that much. And so that's something police are going to be piecing together, and they're going to be out there for a while as we show you live pictures there from the scene where law enforcement, other first responders, a wide area that is blocked off there at Clifton Road where this has taken place today, as they now try to explain the tragedy that has unfolded here today.
Yeah, we're looking, this is all taking place in the area at Clifton Road and CDC Parkway, right at that intersection. And we see that law enforcement response is not slowing down, not tapering off. This is still a very active investigation. And as Chief Shearbaum said, they are still trying to figure all of this out for themselves as well. So they were able to give us some preliminary details, but that's exactly what it is right now, preliminary. So this is still, investigators are going to be on the scene all night long trying to work through it, And we are still going to be continuing to work to get answers about the identity of the suspected shooter. Again, the suspected shooter who is now deceased. And as you said, thankfully, we have learned that no civilians were injured, no civilians were shot.
One thing that was interesting, we heard from law enforcement and officials say that 4 people ended up in the hospital for stress from what happened here today. And you can only imagine, and we've heard from a number of witnesses today who heard the gunfire, they saw people running. You can, and then the parents who were trying to get to those 92 kids, some of them, I don't think still have gotten to them. They've had a reunification point, but they're trying to do that now. But the stress of what people have gone through today, experiencing this, is just so devastating for so many people to be that close to something, knowing there was some kind of loss of life.
We have Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe on the scene. He is positioned right outside of the hospital where that DeKalb County officer was taken. Brendan, I'm curious, is there a law enforcement response out there? We know that when an officer is down, that there are usually several different law enforcement agencies, fellow officers out there showing their support.
Yes, Carly, I was just looking behind me because we have seen a lot of activity. What we have seen is a tremendous amount of DeKalb Police Department cars here. Also DeKalb Sheriff also here, but DeKalb Police mostly here, lots of hugging. We have seen some folks go in, and we are told there's going to be an 8:30 news conference right here next to where I'm standing. We're all lined up for that any moment. And let me just, okay, they're just going to be moving us in a second. I was just listening to make sure I wasn't missing a briefing. We are told that they're going to be out here at 8:30, so that's about 21 minutes from now, giving us a briefing. You heard Chief Sherbaum essentially deferring to the DeKalb Police Department, and out of respect, there is an officer down, and out of respect, they are not going to break any news about another department's officer. And they're going to wait for the DeKalb Police Department to come out and tell us the news. But we have confirmed from multiple high-level sources that a police officer is dead, and that wasn't, refuted in that news conference. They were just merely deferring to the police department involved because they weren't there to be able to break that news at the moment, essentially. And also, we are told the family is inside the hospital, and so the family is briefed, the family knows. We always withhold the notification of the death of a police officer until we get that confirmation from the police department involved, because we do want to make sure that we are not the ones informing the next of kin that has happened. But the law enforcement family here, you can definitely feel it. There's this palpable sense of grief. But also, as I mentioned, just before that news conference, when we were analyzing that video that Anastasia almost did such an excellent job describing, the most definitely lives were saved here. Whether or not the suspect, the shooter, was killed by police gunfire or by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, we do know that that shooter was boxed in and was in the second floor of the CVS because of that massive police response. And so they were, so long as police are engaging the shooter is not engaging the public. And so it is absolutely clear at this point that lives were saved. We know from multiple videos, some of which we can show you, some of which are on social media and aren't cleared for broadcast right now, that there were multiple gunshots. And we do have reports of a rifle involved. I mean, there could have been mass casualties here. And according to police, there are no civilian casualties. So it is very clear that the police response here has saved lives. Simply, it's obvious. We don't need an official to tell us that because the facts bear this out, simply because the police were engaging the shooter. The shooter has been neutralized one way or the other, and the shooter did not take out any civilians, which is extraordinary when you see those bullet holes that Andy Parati was able to get photographs of from CDC employees. And by the way, that's from Andy's deeply sourced within the CDC because he has done so many investigations involving the CDC. The CDC employees trust him, and he's connected with them. And he is also plugged into signal chats with them. So he was able to see those photos before anybody else and was able to get those cleared to bring to you. So we are starting to piece together more and more of exactly what's happening here. And unfortunately, here in the next 20 minutes or so, we're expecting to get official word that a police officer has been killed we have confirmed that through our sources, and we may end up learning the identity of that officer and also some more information of how that officer was killed. So we're going to have to reposition here because they're moving us for this news conference. You can see some of the media behind me moving here. So I am going to throw it back to you just so we can reposition. And once we do, we'll be back here live with you. But for now, we're at Emory Hospital. I'm Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe.
Right. I think it brings up a really good point talking about civilians. You and I were just doing the same thing. That police response impacted, what happened here today, and this could have been so much worse with civilians being shot or killed. And it's just not enough can be said about how police responded to this today.
And we saw such a large scale effort. We saw that response with multiple different agencies, one that shows the seriousness of this situation, but also, to Brendan's point, could have prevented a situation that is even worse than one that we already saw.
Sure. Let's bring in our colleague, Atlanta News First anchor Joe Gorcho, who's there out on the scene. And Joe, I know this has been unfolding here this afternoon, and we've seen parents trying to reach those kids, those 92 kids, that daycare across the street from the CDC. Do you have any insight on where that stands here tonight?
Well, we're still seeing some parents file in right now. We're by one of the preschools here on one of the Emory University campuses. I'm sorry, the address is eluding me right now because I've been just watching the emotion from some of the parents that are coming here to this scene. And there's about maybe 10 or so that have arrived to this point. This will be the reunification site for those parents of kids at that daycare right now. And you can just see in my brief conversations with a couple of them, there's a lot of stress, there's high emotions, there's frustration, there's anger, there's anxiety. They want to be able to see their child, hug their child, know they're okay, knowing what they've just been through, some of that ordeal. We heard from Brendan, we've heard from Andy Parati as well. We've seen some of the pictures and some of the images from the shooting that took place. So you can only imagine if your child was experiencing that, having to go into lockdown, having to shelter in place, and as a parent wondering, are they okay? Not just physically are they alive, but how are they emotionally doing in this moment, right? How are they handling this, and the stress on the teachers and the staff there at that daycare trying to manage a very difficult situation. In fact, I spoke with a mother about probably an hour and a half ago. I haven't been able to reach her since. I know she's still trying to reunite with her loved ones. Her wife was picking up their child, their year and a half old, at that daycare when her wife texted her, there are gunshots, we're going into lockdown, I have to keep quiet. And just the anxiety building and the stress building in that moment, now wondering and fearing for her loved one's safety. Let's hear from her just a little bit. I spoke with her again. This is about an hour and a half ago. This was on Houston Mill, Clifton Road, just a little bit away. Take a listen.
It's anxiety inducing. It's very scary. I'm also, a bit angry that at a year and a half he would have to experience something like this.
My goodness, he's my daughter's age.
Yeah, he's a baby. You know what I mean? We should be able to take our kids to daycare. Our spouses should be able to pick them up safely without worrying about gunfire nearby. So it's very, very scary.
May I ask how you found out about the shooting?
I received a text from my wife who was picking them up and could hear gunshots and was told that they were on lockdown. So.
Your wife was picking your son up and heard the gunshots for herself.
Correct.
Have you been able to talk to her?
I have been able to speak to her, and she's safe. They're safe. So that's relieving in some capacity.
What was that conversation like when you heard your wife share that with you? I can't imagine hearing my spouse tell me, I'm picking up our child and I'm hearing gunshots.
She couldn't call me because they were told to be quiet, so it was sent via text message, a short text message to let me know what was going on. Unfortunately, my car is in the shop right now, so I had to contact a neighbor to get down here, but I needed to get down here, so I need to see my son as quickly as possible, and my wife.
Knowing that they're okay, though, and she texting you that, has that helped at all during this just really difficult moment?
It does help, but the anxiety is still high. You know what I mean? I still haven't seen them. I still haven't held them, and that is my next priority, to get to them as quickly as possible, as soon as they will allow me to.
So there you go. You heard a little bit of that conversation that we had earlier today. I'm sorry, I'm holding my finger to my ear. There's a very loud train just about maybe 50 feet to my left here that's passing through at this time. But we're seeing more and more parents here of children from that daycare begin to arrive on Starvine Way here at the Clifton School. That's the reunification site. That's the site I was trying to recall when you first sent it to me here, Blair and Carly. Again, there's so much happening here, and you're just trying to take it in and trying to really understand and feel that emotion and that pain these parents are experiencing. There might be a moment, there's that brief euphoric moment when they see their child for the first time and hug them, but rest assured, long recovery. There's going to be a lot of emotion and trauma associated with this moment here in time. And so hopefully we'll speak with more parents, just get a sense of how they're doing. And for those of you, again, who have children in that daycare, if you're not aware, you have loved ones that work at that daycare site. So we'll be here for quite some time as we look to see how they're going to be able to reunite these families here. But certainly a very tough day indeed for many of these parents, the waiting, the longing to hug their child again after hours and hours of just unknown and so much anxiety, Blair and Carly.
And Joe, I'm trying to think about how these parents talk to their kids about this. You're talking about very young kids who are still away from their house. Here we are at 8:18 at night. For many kids that age, that's bed. We're at bedtime. You know, I have 3 kids. You have 2 daughters. You know, and I just think about how do these parents have these conversations with their kids who are going to boil this down the most basic reality of what the tragedy has happened today and of what they saw and heard.
It's certainly, Blair, you're so right. And certainly the age difference too. This is where, I would imagine in the near future, there'll be trained professionals to help some of these parents and these families guide them through these conversations. It certainly will vary from different age groups, but certainly you're talking about like the 3 to 4-year-old range, especially these are difficult conversations, Blair, you're right. And even with tonight's routine, I can only imagine what the staff is going through right now with these children, trying to keep them calm, trying to keep them playful, and in a situation that's very, very difficult, especially with the woman we spoke with. Her child's a year and a half. A year and a half. I have twin daughters that are exactly that age right now, and I could only imagine that anxiety of wondering they're out of routine. How are they holding up? I know how my twin girls are at like 8 o'clock at night, Blair. They're freaking out. They're having meltdowns. They're ready to go to sleep. So this is certainly, and I love my girls. I'm not trying to say anything, but they're a year and a half. But that's the whole point. There's just a lot of anxiety and stress, the unknowns. They're in a different routine right now. And certainly the trauma of being involved in a situation where there's gunfire, you're fearing for your life. And so I can only commend the staff. I haven't been able to speak with anyone, but I did speak with a gentleman whose daughter works there and just got a little bit of a sense of what they were going through. And I really do commend the daycare staff and what they've had to go through today to maintain that level of calm and poise, keep the children in a safe space, in a good mental place during this really tough ordeal. So that's something hopefully throughout the next coming days we can really highlight, Blair, because you can only imagine what that staff was going through. Like you mentioned, 92 children attend that daycare, and that staff really, for these last 3 to 4 hours, have really been pushed to do the best they can to keep calm and help these children navigate this really, really difficult situation.
Yeah, and this just wasn't a quick situation either. From all accounts, there was a lot of gunfire. This went over time. I mean, you're talking about a shootout right across the street. So this wasn't just 1 or 2 gunshots. This was 10 to 30. Who knows at this point? That's certainly one of the questions. And I think you're right. It's one of the stories that will be coming out of this is, what unfolded in so many of these different parts of our community as this tragedy was happening.
Blair, without a doubt. And what I'm looking forward to most is just to see those moments. And like I get emotional thinking about it, even some, brief tears for a brief moment, just seeing what that moment will be like when kids can hug, when parents can hug their kids for the first time. We're seeing more and more parents come into the parking lot here at Clifton School. A lot of anxious faces, a lot of like longing moments, waiting for that time where they can see their children again. It's just one of those things, Blair, you probably never think about as a parent, and far too often we're seeing these play out. Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens was talking about it. This is not just isolated here to Atlanta, toward the Emory University campus and by this daycare here today in terms of this type of shooting. We're seeing these far too often throughout our country at this moment. And there's too many communities that are having to deal with this space. And I think sometimes it's different when you're watching it play out on TV and you're watching news coverage as opposed to being here, being in the moment, and also being around people who are directly affected from this. And Brendan, I thought, said it best. Brendan Keefe, a reporter, senior investigator, said it best. I thought that because of their courageous actions of law enforcement acting swiftly, like you mentioned, Blair, engaging in that shootout, it probably saved lives and civilian lives. And who knows how many lives were saved even within that daycare and the surrounding area because of the way law enforcement moved in so swiftly. I'm sure we'll get more details about what took place in the days ahead, but I kind of on the same page of our senior investigator, Brendan Keefe, in terms of really processing that and how they acted to keep our community safe and really what was just a horrific moment in time.
Well, and I think as we learn much more about this, we're only going to learn more about the steps that were taken today and what truly unfolded, and how close this was to being even more tragic than it already has been. Hey, Joe, hang with us for a second. I want you to listen to the soundbite.
It's devastating.
We were just listening to Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. He was talking about those children that you were talking about. Let's go listen to hear what he had to say in this news conference just moments ago.
To those parents of those 92 children that are at the CDC. I'm a parent as well. I know your uncertainty and your fear and your concern has been high. We wanted to come give you this message that all the children are safe and that we will be making sure that you get reunited with them as soon as possible.
You heard it right there from Mayor Andre Dickens. It just knowing that everyone's safe, the 92 children are accounted for, and they're working to reunite them. And this is where the reunification will take place, Star Vine Way here at the Clifton School. And again, we're seeing more parents continue to pull into this parking lot, and you see some of them sitting on the ground. They're commiserating with each other, some with their hands folded, some pacing back and forth. I think everyone handles emotions differently, especially when you're in a high stress situation and really the unknown about how your child's really handling this moment. I mean, that's the thing, right? Think about this, Blair. If you have a child who's, at least at an age where they have a cell phone, you can communicate them in a situation that's as horrific as this, as a shooting event. You can kind of at least get the sense and try to help your child navigate it. Now we're talking about children that are in daycare, that are a year old, 2, 3, 4, and there's no direct line of communication with your child. So I can only imagine how they're feeling right now, knowing all you want to do is wrap your arms around them. So that's kind of the difficulty of this situation, of the wait and the hours that go by, because you can't really speak with your child and all you want to do is tell them it's going to be okay.
Well, Joe, we are hoping for that moment very soon for these families. And you had talked about Brendan Keefe's report. I do want to point out, when we were speaking with him, he was playing some video. This was given to us by a source from the CDC, given to investigator Andy Parati, where we saw the bullet hole in the window. And then it was zooming in on the corner. And I think for viewers that were just joining us, they may not have realized what we were looking at, but it was the slide to the playground that was just outside of the window. And it's horrific to think about just how close all of this was. But thankfully, again, that the situation did not turn out worse than it did. Joe, we know that we will check
Yeah,
back
I didn't
with you
even know
later
that,
on.
Carly. I'm glad you
Yeah.
shared that with me.
And
No, I appreciate you sharing that with me, because we've been traveling back and forth, and I'm trying to listen to a reporting here and there. So just even hearing you say that right now, it just puts a lot of things into perspective, even for me, as I'm here on the ground trying to get a sense of more what these parents are going through. But that's startling. I actually didn't know that's how close it was.
Definitely puts things in pretty sobering perspective. And so we will check back with you as these families get reunited. We know that there are going to be a lot of hugs, a lot of tears, happy tears this evening. Thank you so much. Atlanta News First anchor Joe Gorcho reporting live for us.
Right now, as we continue with our live coverage of the active shooter that happened today here outside the CDC's headquarters in DeKalb County, we are waiting for an update from DeKalb County Police. That's what you're looking at here on the a little hard for me to tell because our monitor's reversed on the left-hand side of your screen, I believe, or right-hand side of your screen, and that's where police will be giving us an update on what's happened today from their perspective, because they had an officer who responded to this incident here today. Our sources are telling us that that officer has passed away. Law enforcement did not confirm that in the last briefing, but that was a briefing held by Atlanta officials who were handling that and wanted to defer to DeKalb County. So we will be hearing much more from their perspective here, and we expect that to begin around 8:30. But as these things often unfold, things can change with their investigations, and they can push things back. So that's what we're waiting for to happen at this point. Get an update from DeKalb County Police and their response here today.
And we also know that there were a number of DeKalb County police officers outside of the hospital where that officer was taken. We saw from report of Brendan Keefe that family members were going inside of the hospital. We know a number of different officers were there showing their support. And so we are awaiting official word, official confirmation. As you said, we have heard that an officer has lost their life today. And we are waiting to get the official word from the DeKalb County Police Chief. But from all law enforcement agencies, what we witnessed today, bravery, heroism, a coordinated and a very large scale response from multiple different agencies.
And that work does not end at this point, because as we're showing you some video from the First Alert Chopper over the scene earlier today, you can see that response you're talking about, Carly. And that's what happens in these situations. It's this video right here that I think really stood out to us as it was unfolding. We saw officers with their guns out, running over to that CVS. And at the same time, we were getting countless messages from campus, from law enforcement, for people to stay away, that was an active shooter situation, and seeing it all unfold in real time.
And I just cannot imagine getting that update to run, hide, fight when you see those words. I mean, I just can't even imagine the fear, the what to even do in that situation. But we have heard from multiple different people who said they heard several rounds of gunfire. We heard from a nearby restaurant worker who says that they were all hiding in the back of the kitchen. We heard from one man who lives at the apartments nearby, said he heard so many rounds of gunfire. At first he thought it was construction, but that he went and checked on his neighbors and made sure that they were all okay. We've heard from parents, as Atlanta News First anchor Joe Gorcha, we were just listening to his interview, having to stand and watch and wait, as we all were, trying to learn what took place and what the severity of the situation was. And now we are going to see, as you mentioned, Blair, the results of this. We know about what has taken place, but now we are waiting to figure out the implications of all of this. We know the tip of the iceberg. We're waiting to learn what may have prompted the alleged shooter to do this. We are waiting to learn more about the identity of the suspected shooter. And in just moments, we are waiting to hear more about this DeKalb County police officer.
Yeah, and we know that law enforcement found this shooter and neutralized the shooter. That shooter was struck by gunfire. It's not clear if that was self-inflicted or if that came from law enforcement. What role this officer played from DeKalb County could be significant. And what unfolded here today, and what prevented anything more from happening today. As we were showing you the video earlier that our investigative team had obtained and someone had shared with us, showing law enforcement responding, appeared around the CVS, firing bullets. Here it is right here, and you can hear the gunfire. This witness described it as a shootout between police and this suspect. And for it all to unfold right here in the heart of our community, this is something people don't get past very quickly.
A busy Friday evening. We know this is a very populated area, businesses here, restaurants here, people working in the area and studying in the area. And we do want to point out, we have, and here we see, this is an image. That's that slide that I was talking about. Again, if you don't know what you're looking at first, it's maybe hard to conceptualize what you're seeing, but that was what appeared to be a bullet hole in the window of the CDC office. And then now we see just how close this playground, this daycare was to where this took place. And despite the law enforcement scene that is out there tonight, we do want to emphasize officials are telling us that there is no further threat to the public tonight. I know that it's hard to quell those fears and concerns when there has been so much activity and so much stress and anxiety. But as you said, they do say that there was one suspected shooter and they are now deceased.
And the big question in all this will be the motive and behind all this. And there was some reporting from CNN, and as a CNN affiliate, we were sharing some of that reporting that they were saying the CDC was the target of all this by the suspected gunman. And you really do have to feel for the employees. You know, I know our staff has been speaking with some of those CDC employees today who heard the gunfire, saw their windows shattered from that gunfire, and you know, how they returned to work with everything they have been through over the last year, and now this, certainly thoughts are with them.
Just so alarming to see. And I imagine the person who took these images, the CDC employee that provided these images to Atlanta News First, if you work in this building and you see something like that at your place of work, however far from your office, from where you do your job day to day. Again, this is a Friday evening. People probably just about to head home for the day, head home for the evening and enjoy their weekend. And now having to contend with something like this, to have this sort of fear and trepidation at their own place of work.
And wondering how you come back to it. Honestly, when you go through something like this, I always get so concerned, and you and I have covered sadly these things too often, and it's always, how do people respond to this the weeks and months after they experience something that is so so gut shattering? How do everybody moves on. This world moves so quickly, and how do people who truly are impacted by this come back in the weeks and the months, and how do they move forward? It's tough.
And of course, it's not even just the CDC employees,
Right.
but Atlanta News First anchor Joe Gorcho, he was talking about how a police officer was escorting a woman who appeared to be an employee of the CVS across the street, where the suspected shooter was found deceased. This officer was consoling her and helping her, escorting her across the street. We know they witnessed what took place today. We know that they witnessed whatever exchange may have happened that we are hoping to learn more about. And we also know, again, we saw that eyewitness account from the cell phone video just across the street, where they saw law enforcement engaging with someone inside this video right here. So of course, we know that the CDC employees were affected. We know the CVS employees were affected, and anyone who lives or works in this area had to hear this. And as we heard, probably at first couldn't even process what it was that they were hearing.
And all of this, Carly, coming just days after another high-profile incident, also here in Georgia, of course, talking about the shooting that happened at Fort Stewart, the Army base, earlier this week, just days after that.
And that was what Governor Brian Kemp had alluded to when he spoke about this on social media platform X, saying that we have had to deal with these two tragic incidents in just 24 hours.
Yeah, and the mayor was talking about this. Mayor Andre Dickens of Atlanta was talking about this. And here's some of what he had to say in that news conference.
So your question around a number of high-profile shootings, Fort Stewart, here at Emory, and others across the nation and in the state of Georgia, is definitely one that we have to pay attention to. As you see active shooters across the nation, we've just been added to the statistic.
He talks about the statistics. I think just yesterday we were talking about FBI statistics saying that violent crime was down here in Atlanta. And statistics can say everything. It's, what's the perception today and this week? It's a tough perception. And it's a tough conversation for a lot of communities to be having, and add us to the list.
And as Mayor Andre Dickens was saying, this is something they have to look at. This is something they have to consider, and that they have to be aware of. And it's sad that we have to be aware of these things, but unfortunately, the timing of some recent incidents that we have seen here in Metro Atlanta, that we have seen here in Georgia, don't do much to comfort families who may be watching, who are witnessing this, who live in these communities, and say, like you said, Blair, the numbers may say one thing, but I'm seeing right now in front of me something different.
That news conference is now getting underway or about to get underway by DeKalb County law enforcement and officials. We expect that to begin here any moment now, where we're expecting an update from DeKalb County Police, the role they played, because some of their officers did respond here today to this incident. It looks like they are maybe trying to get ready, maybe just a few minutes out. And the way these things tend to work is every agency tries to be respectful of the other, to let their news conference play out and not try to break any news for the other. So you had Atlanta officials giving their update. They're the lead investigator on this case and what has happened. And so they will lead what's been happening, and they deferred to DeKalb County Police. They wanted the acting police chief to be there. And the acting police chief, I believe, was meeting with the family and other law enforcement members there to in advance of what's going to be happening. So.
And we also anticipate DeKalb County CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson to be out there as well. So that is what we are watching and waiting for any moment. As in these situations, we get pieces of information a little bit at a time. We get what we are hearing here in the newsroom that we are able to independently confirm with our reporters who have boots on the ground. And then we have the press conference, as we heard from law enforcement, from the Atlanta mayor, and now another briefing in which we can get a little bit more. So each time sort of chipping away, adding another piece to the puzzle to paint a full picture of what transpired today. But we do know, if you are just now joining us, that a call came in just before 5 p.m. of an active shooter. This happening at the CVS at Emory Point, there on Emory's campus, directly across from the CDC there in Atlanta. And so the circumstances of the shooting are still unclear, but we know that based on what law enforcement has told us, that there was one alleged shooter involved, and they are now deceased. It sounds like the press conference is beginning now.
Speaking today, we have Chief Pedrick from the DeKalb County Police Department, as well as CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson. We'll start with Chief Pedrick from the police department.
Evening, everyone. My name is Greg Pedrick. I'm the interim chief for the DeKalb County Police Department. I'm not going to comment on the investigation and what's going on with the investigation that's being conducted by the Atlanta Police Department with assistance from the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. But what I can say, it is with profound sadness that we announce the loss of the life of one of our very own DeKalb County police officers. This officer responded to the call as he was trained to do. And during that incident, he received gunfire and he lost his life in this incident. He was committed to serving the community. At this time, we're asking for the community's prayers for his family, his friends, his loved ones, and the entire DeKalb County Police Department family. It's a noble profession that we all do. We answer the call to serve our community, and he gave his life with a commitment to serve others, and he should be respected for that. At this time, we are not going to release his name with respect for the family, but we will provide his name and photograph at a later time. We ask for your prayers and your thoughts during this difficult time, especially for his family and for all of the officers involved in this incident and the DeKalb County Police Department. Thank you.
Good evening. Of course, I'm Lorraine Cochran Johnson, DeKalb County CEO. And today is a very dark day in DeKalb County as we stand before you during the loss of one of our beloved officers. This evening, there is a wife without a husband. There are 3 children, one unborn without a father. There is a mother and a father, as well as siblings, who also share in this traumatic loss. This evening, my heart goes out to the family, as well as the DeKalb County family, and to our frontline responders, to our officers, who in this case simply answered the call. These are individuals who run towards danger when we have the ability to run away. So tonight, it is with profound sadness that I stand here and I say to all of those who serve as frontline responders and to our officers that we are here to support you, and to this family and to my DeKalb County family during this time. Let's join together to give this family the support that it needs during this traumatic loss. Thank you. So those are the official statements at this time. We will not take questions right now. We do plan to have an updated statement for you as we receive more information. Thank you.
The thin blue line feeling deep pain and sorrow tonight. DeKalb County confirming much of what we reported earlier today. DeKalb County police officer lost his life in that tragedy that unfolded outside Emory University and CDC headquarters earlier today.
At this time, they have not released the officer's name as they continue to notify his family, but we have learned that he leaves behind a wife and 3 children. One of those children has not even been born yet. So Very sad news to have to report tonight, a very sad breaking update that we have to deliver.
It is tragedies like these that bring a community together, but also lead to many questions about why this happened today. That is something many in the law enforcement community, but also in our own community are asking, why did this happen? That motive has not been released. That's something Atlanta police continue to investigate, and they held their news conference earlier and laid out what they thought, where the investigation stood and what they knew. The shooter is dead. But also tonight, a member of our local law enforcement community is also dead.
And CEO of DeKalb County, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, saying this is a dark day for DeKalb County. So we are going to continue to stay on top of any breaking developments as we continue to learn them. Remember, Atlanta News First is your source for breaking news. We will update you both on air and online. Keep in mind our Atlanta News First app. You can get any breaking updates as we anticipate a lot more answers coming up sent directly to your phone.
Our next newscast is tonight at 10 o'clock. We hope to see you then.
Mayor of Atlanta say that a lot of people were saved and kept safe today because of the actions of this officer.
And sometimes many are quick to ridicule law enforcement. But I'll tell you, that officer today died a hero. He saved lives on Clifton Road in that 1600 block. There were businesses, there were witnesses, and from our understanding, that officer did not have a chance though. He responded, he took on a hell of gunfire, he tried to fight back, but the senseless act took a life of a hero today, a father, an expecting father, and a son, and a brother to many in that agency and across this city. And I'll tell you, it's not just DeKalb County hurting tonight, but it's every law enforcement officer in the city, because they all know every single officer that responded this afternoon at 4:50, this could have been one of them, and it would be their families getting that call that his wife got probably in the 5 o'clock hour, that she always had in the back of her head it could happen, but never, ever expecting her husband would not come home.
The call came today, and even as the law enforcement community mourns and the city mourns, law enforcement now continues an investigation. The shooter was killed there at the scene. Investigators now trying to figure out why he took a weapon and confronted law enforcement outside of the CDC. We'll have much more for you coming up tonight on 11 Alive News at 11.
This has been an 11 Alive News special report. We now return to regular programming.
Lord God, that their kid's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then try to explain it to them, by the way.
I know,
you know?
Yeah. I'm sure the workers at that daycare have just been great in keeping the kids calm, because you would have been able to hear the shots from the daycare.
I mean, if we heard them here at Fox 5.
Right. I mean, that's right across the street. So, yeah, thank God all those kids are okay. Let's get back out to our Russ Spencer. Russ, just a really emotional, heavy, somber mood there outside Emory University Hospital, hearing from the DeKalb CEO and police chief talking about this officer who's been killed.
Yeah, just a gut punch for law enforcement and for the entire Metro Atlanta community. We've been watching this afternoon. We saw the earlier news conference at the Kroger, where they gave us a little bit of good news, which was that no civilians were shot in the course of all of this. And this fallen officer may share responsibility for having saved lives, because a DeKalb officer on the scene there at that news conference made it clear that it wasn't that he just happened to be in the area, that he rushed to the scene and engaged somebody with a high-powered weapon and paid for it with his life. As Chief Pedrick put it, he gave his life. He had a commitment to serve others, and that's how he died. And I'm sure, like me, you were just crestfallen to hear not only that he had a family, but a family with 3 children and 1 on the way. It's just unspeakable. It's just too much. And our hearts go out to his family, his extended family, and his law enforcement family. And we praise him and all of the officers who ran toward the danger this afternoon. I'm not sure that I've ever seen that many officers working together and putting their own lives in danger, knowing that there was an active threat, hearing this high-powered weapon and going after this person anyway. We'll find out eventually whether or not this killer killed himself or whether police did, but it doesn't really matter. What matters now is that we have lost one of our finest, and we need to, as Lorraine Cochran Johnson said, join the police department, join the entire community in trying to lift up this family.
Yeah, the chief asking for prayers for family, friends, loved ones. Yeah, it's just been a really heart-wrenching day for so many people attached to this situation.
But you can't be amplified enough, Russ, what you said, and that is the bravery of these frontline responders to situations like this, where somebody is on the loose with such a powerful weapon. But it is now something in our culture and society where, you know, situations like this are not completely like shocking to law. I mean, we're sort of, you know, and they talk about the training that goes into responding to situations like this, but to be on the front of mind of the first responders and to know, I mean, the mayor, Dickens, talk about the drills that they go through to confront situations like this, and, you know, and how to, you know, get them under control in the fastest way they can.
Well, you think about situations where, and understandably so, because most of us can't imagine going towards gunfire like these heroic members of law enforcement do so many times. But there have been tragedies and mass shootings where maybe the first officer there on scene was too scared, or they panicked and they couldn't go towards the gunfire, and there were more casualties as a result. So just hearing the details coming out in these early stages about what this officer may have done, as Russ pointed out, it really could have prevented a much bigger tragedy here, especially knowing that there were 92 children at a daycare center right across the street.
Just echoing what, you know, obviously our hearts are just, you know, broken for the DeKalb County Police Force and this officer and his family. And so are the viewers watching with us on our YouTube channel. So many joining us. I'm going to read Jamila because I think she encapsulates the feeling of our viewers, and that her condolences and prayers are to the officer and their family, enduring such an unimaginable situation at the hands of a nutcase who decided to carry this out this afternoon, right here in the backyard of our own community.
And that's a good point, because we are asking so many questions about the motive, the why. Why would you do? I mean, is there anything that can justify this kind of senseless violence that you're shooting at innocent people across a busy street over the heads of innocent children with no regard for the people who live in that apartment building? And you know, it'll be interesting to find out what the motive was. It'll satisfy our curiosity, but I don't think it will explain. You know, there's no legitimate explanation for this kind of act to be carried out.
As we approach the top of the hour here on a story that's been with us since just before news time at 5 o'clock here on Fox 5, something that's happening literally in our own backyard here, so close to the station, where one of our own employees heard the gunfire as he walked out to go to the parking lot to go home for the weekend, and ran back into our assignment desk and said, "Hey guys, something's unfolding really close to us, because I just heard long rifles being fired," and he was right. This is a shot from the traffic camera on Clifton Road of the scene right now, and you can see it's still very active as the investigation into what happened here and the motives of this person that carried out the gunfire today begin to be realized. But this just happened right before 5 o'clock, when the gunfire rang out at the CVS drugstore there on Clifton Road, right across the street from the heavily fortified CDC campus, where gunfire struck one of their impact-resistant windows high above the CDC campus, not one, but two, and perhaps even three of their buildings. And so as the days unfold, we're going to learn what the motivation of this shooter was.
That's right. And police declining to specify what kind of weapon was used, although it was almost certainly, I don't want to speculate, but again, our marketing director who overheard the shots thought it sounded like a rifle.
And who's familiar with guns. by the way.
Familiar with guns. I mean, it got to be a certain kind of firearm to reach the distance and also the height at which you can see those bullet holes that were in the glass there. I don't want to really call them holes because we don't know if the bullets or rounds actually made it through the glass, but definitely damaged them to a significant degree. But again, as we're hearing about the moments that officer, that DeKalb County officer confronted the shooter, it's just really stunning. We heard from Darren Shearbaum that he was critically injured already when the Atlanta police officers arrived on scene around 4:50. So very clearly the shots started, the shooter was confronted. That all must have happened so quickly for that officer to confront him alone.
And then we learned that the officer lost his life doing just that, from the DeKalb County CEO and the interim chief just a few moments ago. Let's listen.
But what I can say, it is with profound sadness that we announce the loss of the life of one of our very own DeKalb County police officers. This officer responded to the call as he was trained to do. And during that incident, he received gunfire and he lost his life in this incident. He was committed to serving the community. At this time, we're asking for the community's prayers for his family, his friends, his loved ones, and the entire DeKalb County Police Department family. It's a noble profession that we all do. We answer the call to serve our community, and he gave his life with a commitment to serve others, and he should be respected for that. At this time, we are not going to release his name with respect for the family, but we will provide his name and photograph at a later time. We ask for your prayers and your thoughts during this difficult time, especially for his family and for all of the officers involved in this incident and the DeKalb County Police Department.
This evening, there is a wife without a husband. There are 3 children, one unborn without a father. There is a mother and a father, as well as siblings, who also share in this traumatic loss. Let's join together to give this family the support that it needs during this traumatic loss.
Fox 5's Kim Loeffler was at that news conference when it happened. Kim, the emotions palpable out there. Give us your perspective from when you were listening to those 2 officials from DeKalb County.
Yeah, it was a very heavy moment. You can certainly see the emotion in their faces, as well as from the other law enforcement officials who were there to support them, including the DeKalb County Sheriff, Melanie Maddox, as well as Sheriff Patrick Labat from Fulton County, who were all there. Certainly a really tough evening for the law enforcement community here. Again, we got confirmation that that officer did pass, responding to the call just down the road from where we are here along Clifton Road. In fact, I'm going to step out and you can still see the amount of law enforcement presence that's here at this hour. It's been like this ever since we first got on scene here right around 6:45 this evening. Now, again, as you heard, they're not identifying the officer at this point, but you can certainly tell that this is a very difficult loss for not just the DeKalb County Police Department, but the entire law enforcement community here in the Atlanta area. Of course, we are expecting to learn more about this officer in the coming days, but it's clear to see that the officer certainly made an impact here in DeKalb County. Guys?
Yeah, just unconscionable to think about leaving behind a wife, 2 kids. Sounds like that wife had another baby on the way. And yeah, just clearly a very emotional time for all the people connected to this law enforcement officer.
Yeah,
Kim, thanks.
They're not going to release his name or his photo until the family has a chance to process their unimaginable loss. Let's get out to Eric Perry. Eric, you were one of the first reporters on the scene, and something interesting happened while all of this was unfolding, or in the aftermath of it. We saw somebody getting arrested, and I don't know if it was just me, but I saw, like, was he wearing a badge or something? Who was this person?
Yeah, Tom, Courtney. So we saw someone in handcuffs, hands behind his back. It was a clear sight, and it looked like they had placed him inside that police car. Of course, we all saw it and didn't know what was happening. Well, probably about an hour or so afterwards, we saw him off to the side over there. In fact, he's still over there. He said that he was just in his car when all of this happened. And then I think in the confusion, he said that police might have thought he was involved. So that's why he was detained in all of this. They later released him. He had a good sense of humor about it. But he said he was just honestly in the area when all of this unfolded. And with investigations like this and a large sweep, police are just being very careful that if you were there in that scene, they want to make sure that you had some sort of, explanation or reason before they let you go there as well. So he is free. So we wanted to make sure that we clear that up as well. He did have some sort of badge. I couldn't tell exactly where it was there, but he was just in his car, and police have since let him go. And before I go, I just want to move out of the way just to show you the sea of blue lights here. I think Kim Luffler mentioned this, or maybe Russ Spencer mentioned this. We've been on several active shooter situations and scenes like this. This is one of the most police presence or heaviest police presence that I've seen. This is up, of course, by the CDC across from the CBS, but the police still all the way lined down Clifton Road, all the way to the Briarcliff, which is a good half mile, if not longer. And there's still other officers going in and out of that as well. Of course, we'll be out here all throughout the night. I've been talking with people, and we'll have the latest when you join us at 10 after that game. Tom, Courtney.
Wow, just stunning details coming out about that arrest. Eric, thanks.
We'll have so many more details after the game. Thanks for joining us here on Fox Local for our continuing coverage.
The golden age of America begins right now. America's decline is over. We will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth. I am with you. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. The golden age of America begins right now.